Hi there, this is part 3 of the 3-part bow series. If you haven't seen parts 1 and 2, you absolutely need to go look at them because it won't really make very much sense going forward if you haven't already practiced those two techniques. So now I'm going to describe the missing element, the element that happens to connect your bottom of the bow stroke, where your elbow's hanging down for weight, and your top of the bow stroke, where you're a little pronated on your first finger and your elbow's up. So we need to do a preparatory stroke in between, and it's going to be kind of a 2-part prep. So first part of the prep is I'm going to just do the same length of my short strokes that I was doing before, that from video number 1, that idea, but now I'm going to elevate my elbow while I do it. Feel kind of awkward at first because it feels a little bit artificial to just do that, because you don't need to lift your elbow when you're just staying at the frog. And in fact, if you're doing something where you're going to do short notes of the frog, I absolutely would do that with my elbow hanging down for weight. But when we know that we're going to take a longer bow, we need to do this prep as we're pulling the longer bow. So that's what this is for. This is to train your arm how to get ready for the prep. You may or may not feel your weight shift a little bit over to your first finger. If you can't do that yet, that's fine. That's a skill that will come later, and you're welcome to continue to use your just regular bow grip and not try and shift weight. If you have a high enough skill that you can do that, I encourage you to do that pronation as your elbow lifts, to feel your weight shifting over onto your first finger. And you'll recall I talked about not grabbing on with your pinky. So that's what happens as I do this elbow lift. So that's part 1. Then part 2 is take a longer bow, go all the way up to the place where you would open your elbow. So now I'm going to lift my elbow and go 2/3 of the way up the bow. That is remembering to get your elbow back down. You're going to have to figure out the timing on that. If you do the elbow up or down too soon or too late, you bump into the other strings. It doesn't sound good. It sounds sudden, particularly if you try to put your elbow down soon. If that doesn't work at all. It needs to be gradual, and it's mostly in the lower part of the bow that change happens. But if you don't get control of this elbow thing, and once you realize that you need to have your elbow up to be pulling long bows, there's a tendency for people to end up playing like this all the time with their elbow up. And what we want to see is that your wrist makes this little bent shape, which is what happens when your elbow is hanging down. That's part of this weight coming down. Remember, we did the breathing and dumping all the weight down onto the string. That's always a good thing to do before you start right at the frog. So our 2 parts were part 1, the short bows at the frog. Part 2, we went all the way up to the place where the elbow was going to open. The weight shift onto my first finger. And then once you've gotten good at doing those, and you do need to practice both of those, then you can open up your elbow when you get to that place. I am very specifically not using my fingers to change my bow in this instance, because that kind of muddies the waters. There is more technical finesse in a bow stroke. This is just basically what's happening from here to here. What does my arm do to make an even, consistent sound on the cello? So I hope you'll practice these 3 stages to develop a really wonderful, even bow stroke. Happy practicing!